Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's Payday 3 news update, we are going over the very first developer blog from Starbreeze regarding Operation Medic Bag and some of the fixes and changes coming to the game, and we're also going to have a look through the Reddit AMA that Mio and Almir both did earlier this week. I didn't respond to it at the time making a video because I figured I'd wait till the dev blog came out and do everything in one foul swoop because some of the answers do overlap with each other, and I also wanted a chance to have a look over the answers, and in this video I'm not going to go over everything. I'm going to pick out the most important parts because they either repeat themselves or there's technical kind of business type blurb, especially from Almir as the global brand director. So I wanted to filter through and basically put the best things in this video. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start with the dev blog, then we're going to look through Mio's responses because they're more game specific and I think they're probably more important to look through. And then we'll look at Almir's at the end of the video for more teasing bits for future content and also just general business speak. So let's get right into it and look at the very first developer blog from Payday 3. Today we'll be talking about the learnings from our AMA as well as our upcoming update. Targeted around end of February / beginning of March, we'll be touching upon some of the additions and fixes we've got lined up for our first update of 2024. Now, one thing I'll jump in immediately, they don't mention the date again later in this post, but on Reddit they say repeatedly they're hoping for next week. So they've probably said end of February / beginning of March to cover their asses in case something goes wrong, but judging from how many times they reiterated it on Reddit, I think it's safe to assume we'll see it coming sometime next week. Anyway, let's move on to the AMA summary and moving forward. So as mentioned in the AMA, the kind of updates they've been releasing until now have contained a great number of fixes, but haven't been very regular. Yeah, they've had spots where there's been a month or two of silence and then several updates within 1 or 2 months, so it needs to balance out more for sure. So starting from the April update, it's their goal with Operation Medic Bag to release smaller updates, but more frequently. That will not only help you see more consistent progress on the game, but will also let us do things like balance updates and critical bug fixing more frequently, as well as getting your feedback on the minutiae of each update. And I had no idea what that word was, hence why there's a tab here. I had to look it up. It's the small, precise, or trivial details. So they want to basically give you the nitty-gritty for each thing and get the feedback on all the tiny details. Someone was clearly feeling very fancy when they wrote this blog post, I'll say that much. Anyway, from now until April, we'll be strengthening our initial pipelines and making sure we can deliver updates more reliably and really hit those deadlines going forward. But from our perspective, the AMA went well. Many of you are positive about the plan, which is a good first step. The doubt we see comes from mostly wanting us to deliver on what we promised before singing our praises, which is very fair. We use this blog to expand a bit on some of the questions that were asked and answered during the AMA. We had a lot of questions on what the plans are for free heists coming up, and to clarify for anyone who missed it, we have committed to 1 free heist during the year, in addition to 3 upcoming DLCs already part of the roadmap. We hope to be able to do more during the year, but we need to be absolutely sure it doesn't affect what we need to accomplish in Operation Medic Bag. So again, I touched on this in the last video, but I am still very disappointed they're only committing to 1 free heist. I get it, because they have to shift their focus to fixing the game. It's just a very unfortunate situation that the first full year of Payday 3's life has to be spent fixing things that should have just been right at launch. It's a very common thing in a lot of games these days, and it really sucks to say, especially for Payday 3. But I'm most interested by the DLC thing still, because as I said in the last video, they're doing year 1 of DLC from September to September, because that's the first year of Payday 3. So you would naturally anticipate that the next DLC expansion would come out from October to December time at the end of 2024, and that would be the first DLC expansion of year 2. Payday 3 currently has up to 18 months of DLC confirmed, signed off in the co-publishing deal. So the fact that they refuse to say 4 upcoming DLCs makes me wonder if they're going to slightly push back the start of year 2 to the start of 2025 when they think things are better. I'm intrigued by that. It's quite far off, so they don't really need to confirm it right now, but I am very intrigued by it nonetheless. We will see what happens there. But it is worth mentioning that the extra 6 months after year 1 that have been promised by the publisher were not included in any of the pre-order or special editions of Payday 3. So things could change, things can get altered. No one's paid for any of that stuff yet, so that bit doesn't really matter. And as I said, it's super far off, so it really isn't that deep right now. But I thought it was interesting to bring it up at the very least. But then they have a few highlights from the upcoming patch. This is the one that should be coming out hopefully next week. They've added 2 features to help the game look and run better on PC. First off, support for DirectX 12 will be added in the next update. You'll still be able to choose DirectX 11 via the launch option if you prefer that. But they're also adding NVIDIA's scaler features such as image scaling upscaler, DLAA 3.5, and DLSS Super Resolution 3.5. These should help anyone with a weak or fancy GPU make the game look and run even better. In addition to that, they've got several controller options such as the much requested dead zone adjustments to make controllers more customizable and feel much better to use. Another very requested feature has finally been added as well, the unready function. You can now click ready again to unready at long last. And the last thing we want to mention in this post for all of you hardcore players is that we've added a challenge for completing cook-off on Overkill and getting out with 19 perfectly cooked bags. Anyone who pulls this off will be rewarded with a unique weapon charm. I mean, a mask would have been cooler, but still, a reward is very good nonetheless. I will take what I can get. Not that I'm going to do it anyway. But here we go. Finishing off the post, a big list of fixes coming soon. The full changelog of the nitty-gritty details added in the next patch will also be available when the changes go live. Sad it's not beforehand. I got quite excited about that cadence they were beginning to build up. But you can dive into all all the fixes, 300 plus of them, and features at your leisure. More details soon. But in the next developer blog, they'll be going a bit more detail about the new armor coming to the game, the adaptive armor. Game director Mia will go through his thinking and motivation to the new armor type, how it works compared to the current armor, and some delicious details. Hope to see you then. Well, he says that, but there is quite a bit of interesting information that he's mentioned or at least teased at in his Reddit answers. So before we move on, that's everything in developer blog number 1. It doesn't mention on this blog how often the updates are going to be, but Almir did let slip on Reddit that it's supposed to be weekly. Now, I noticed that they didn't really mention that, I don't think, in the original announcement for Medic Bag, so I don't know if they're willing to commit to weekly, and that might be a slip of the tongue. If it is weekly, that's great. I think that's the best way to do these and have some reliability in the blogs, but we'll see. If we get one next week, that'll set a good precedent, but we'll see where it goes from there. So, that is the dev blog update. Let's move on now to Mio's Reddit answers. So, as I've said, some of these answers are going to be just not really relevant as important points. Some will be repeating themselves. So what I'm going to do is basically cut out in my video just to me reading out and going over the most important questions in here. So if it does feel slightly disjointed, I apologize for that, but I don't want the video to be 40 minutes long. That would be stupid. So I'm going to try and whittle this down as short as I can. So if the video is still long, I've tried my best. So we're going to go from the first answer up to the most recent one. So if there's any case of him repeating himself, I can glide over it. So Mio's first question was, what's going on with the free weapons? Is it all you can confirm with regards to the LMG, or is there going to be extra things via DLC? He said the LMG primary is the only free weapon they can confirm, but depending on the capacity this year, they'd like to do more. In addition to the LMG, they are also adding a new throwable, a new gadget, and looking into new overkill weapons. So bear in mind, this is over the course of 2024. It's not necessarily anytime soon. And I appreciate that he's at least promising a couple of new things, but I do think you're going to see a very continuous pattern here of the things being very minimal in their promises. You know, we're going to do one thing. We're going to do at least one of these things because they are really, I think, scared to overcommit because they've got to spend so much time fixing their mistakes, which, again, it sucks, but I'm hardly surprised. They have also said they're going to add an advanced view tab or screen that breaks down the stats in more detail on the guns. They don't have an ETA for it, hoping to get it this year, so that's probably going back to replacing the bars with actual numbers. From the sounds of it, an advanced view suggests that they'll keep the bars and allow you to look at the numbers, which is all I've asked for from the start. I know a lot of people prefer the numbers. I'm very simple-minded, smooth-brained. I like looking at the bars, so having an option to pick between both, it keeps everyone happy, so I'm glad that they're saying that. The idea for the safe house as well was cut pretty early in the game, so if people still wondering about safe house, why? I get it. I do seriously get it, jokes aside. I personally was not bothered by it. It didn't feel very practical, but I get wanting it for, like, the heist vibe. But I am with Mio saying that it was out of scope. They didn't need it. They would like to eventually do it and make it feel meaningful, but right now it's not planned for this year. And honestly, I think that's the best move. A safe house would be cool, but for a game like Payday 3, that has got to be right at the bottom of the food chain right now. You just don't need that. You really don't. Interestingly enough, someone commented on masks not being able to be customized, especially DLC ones, and said that some of the masks aren't customizable due to unique animated parts, so they made a blanket rule to not make DLC/pre-order/etc. masks customizable. Because this also affected a lot of masks that don't have moving parts, they're re-evaluating this decision and looking into ways to let players customize all masks, DLC or not. I mean, I would imagine the best thing to do is, if they can from a developer standpoint, just label the masks that are animated and don't let people customize those, and then let people go ham on the rest. That would be the easiest way of doing it, even if it leaves some animated masks out that you could put patterns on. Comment section, do you care that you can't customize them? I noted it as a downside of them because it is a downgrade compared to Payday 2, but I'm not sat here crying about it too much because the customization is the same as Payday 2 and therefore makes me care about it a lot less. So let me know if you're actually bothered by that. I would be intrigued. They also plan to add more security modifiers for stealth and introduce loud modifiers and then rotate them twice a week to freshen up the higher difficulties of heists. As for RNG baked into heists themselves, they're aware of the criticism for some heists not being varied enough and are working on finding ways to create more variants in future heists. So not current ones, they're not going to change things within them, but going forward they'll try and make heists feel more varied. Fair enough. Couple of interesting points. A jukebox mode will make a return, but they're not going to manage it this year. They're going to do as many bug fixes as possible in every single update, and the Golden Shark current bug that the security room doesn't need a blue keycard is going to be patched in the next update. They're also talking about trying to make the Wi-Fi circle hacks more engaging. Good, it's needed. And someone asked, will there be a table Easter egg in any of the heists? And with them on this, yeah, adding an Easter egg would be a fun idea, but only once we can remember the jokes fondly. So once the game's much stronger. Will there be further expansions to the mask customization system? Again, this is what I want to know. We plan to let players customize DLC masks in the future and also make some improvements to mask customization in general, but can't comment on a date yet, sorry. The patch should be next week if all goes well, as we know yet. So it's rough, because again, I think it could be a lot better, but it also is about the pecking order, which one's more important. And honestly, much as it pains me to say it, I don't think mask customization should be very high in the pecking order. It just doesn't seem that important to me, compared to everything else going on with the game. And in case I hadn't already mentioned it by now, I'm not sure if I had, but Mio does confirm here, and Almir says the same thing. The plan for update cadence is to have updates every 4 to 6 weeks going forward. forward. So when in the dev blog post, they said they wanted to have updates be more frequent, that's every 4 to 6 weeks. That's their goal they're going for at the minute, and they're going to try and stick to that. So keep an eye on that for future content. A very positive thing as a result of getting rid of the challenge system, Mio confirmed they additionally plan to add new challenges instead of having new achievements. But since they are moving away from the challenge progression system, they will reevaluate that and look into adding new achievements. Much better. As far as I'm concerned, that's a good way to keep the challenges, because achievements were just that. They were special bragging right things, and I don't really think the challenges should have ever been more than that. I appreciate them trying something different, but it didn't work, and I am glad they are walking back on it. That's good. That's very, very good. Clarification regarding offline mode. The current iteration for the second phase of offline mode is that you can play fully offline, but earn money and infamy points and XP at the same time, and then you go online at some point to upload the progress that you've made. Phase 2 will technically let you play offline forever, but for crossplay or things like vendor resets, etc., you'll need to sync with the server. So you could go for ages then playing offline. It seems longer than just every heist. You could go every 2, 3, 4 heists if you wanted to. Stuff like this, I would have loved to have been in the original post. You know, the thing with AMAs is to obviously fill in missing information and answer questions if people don't understand things, but that's the kind of thing that should just be in the post, because that makes it sound so much better. That's a way to explain it in a much better way that doesn't leave it nearly as vague, so it's a shame that was left in just a Reddit response. Interesting point here about the weekly rotating cosmetics inventory. Mio says that the weekly cosmetics will be masks that we rotate. If you miss them, you'll have another chance to get them when they rotate back in, but when they remove a weekly mask from rotation to make room for a new one, they'll make sure there's another way to get hold of it. So either you have to wait for it to come back into the store, or if it's not going to come back, they'll add a way that you can earn it, so nothing will be missing for too long. So hopefully they can stick to that, and that will be a good way to run it. No confirmation as to whether you can pause during offline mode. That needs to be in there. It's not a full offline mode if you can't pause. Like, it's just a fact. Let us pause the game. We'll look into it, get it going. As far as I'm concerned, that's very important. Regarding crew AI, they are hoping to give them more love, but giving them a larger functionality is not something that can guarantee this year, so nothing like what you see in Payday 2. We know people want them to revive each other and be targeted by specials. For reviving each other, the current plan is probably yes, good. And for special enemies targeting them, it's probably no. Also, I think that's fair. The interesting point for reviving is that they're worried it would lead to players ignoring the crew AI, but as it seems that they already do that, there's probably less harm in them reviving each other, though we would still need to get them to prioritize players over other crew AI. Yeah, that's important. But I do really appreciate that, because it's been like that since Mio first said it, of, oh, they'll be too overpowered because they can revive each other. They could do it in Payday 2. They were never overpowered. So I'm glad that he's saying, you know what? Maybe you guys really don't care and we should fix it, because they should, definitely. A bit of a heads up from Mio with regards to the next armor type, as mentioned in the dev blog. I believe it's called adaptive armor. The fully regenerating armor right now has 2 chunks, 2 downs, 4.5 seconds regen speed, and 5% damage resistance as compared to the normal 25% resistance. But it also takes no permanent damage. However, you'll have to restore a plate with an armor bag if you ever completely lose a chunk. So it does take a little bit of permanent damage in that regard, but not very much, which is good. But the stats might change as they get close to release, so fair enough. A more ongoing healing armor like Payday 2, which I think is going to be very, very welcome. Regarding challenges being removed, you'll keep any earned infamy points and C stacks from them, fair enough. They'll also be able to continue leveling up the account by completing heists, which will be rebalanced to account for the fact that there are no longer challenges. But if there's a challenge that rewards something like a cosmetic that you haven't got, they'll make sure to make the cosmetic obtainable in some other form, possibly via an achievement. And initially, they'll have a weekly mask they can purchase for C stacks, and then long term, they'll try and have a vendor with a more rotating full inventory. Interestingly enough, there was a section in this question that said, how will you translate for players who have had active challenges? So ones that, you know, are not quite complete. Mio didn't touch on that, and for me, that is very much a way of him saying, if you've made halfway progress to a big challenge, you're going to lose it. So if there are any big challenges you're trying to work your way along, and unless you want to do it for the sake of fun, I'd stop now. You're trying to complete a heist 300 times, don't bother, it's going to be gone soon enough, and I don't think it's worth the time anyway, but that's just my personal opinion. Interestingly enough, Mio says that in the past they've said no regarding jokers because they couldn't figure out how to make them work in Payday 3, but they have some stuff they're exploring that might make some more powerful concepts like dodge, jokers, and inspire more feasible in Payday 3. Definitely not for this year, but they're trying to pave the way for it in the future. I mean, hot take, I don't really think any of those need to come back, personally. I mean, Jokers were a fun concept, but for the more realistic feel of Payday 3, which I do honestly think is going to end up getting abandoned as they go to fix the game and add more things in, they will, I think what will happen with this game is they'll probably start overcorrecting, and they'll start going too far into Payday 2 and that vibe again, so we'll lose that gritty nature. The first year plus of Payday 3 was meant to be very serious, but it's being spent instead fixing the game, so it could well be they abandon that and they go for these more Payday 2 things like dodge, jokers, and inspire. I will always sit in the camp of hoping that doesn't happen. I don't think the game needs any of them, but like I say with a lot of my things, if I am in the minority, I will hold my hands up, accept it, and go, you know what, fair play, because it's about what the wider audience wants, and I don't always agree, so that's what the human race is for. We're not always going to agree on everything, but I do hope that they don't overcorrect. It's just a an itching feeling right now that that's what's going to happen, but we'll see. Also, the patch after the next one, so one that will come either late March or early mid-April, probably April seems like a smarter guess, that will add the clean slate skill that lets you restore an armor chunk with an armor repair kit if you don't have any armor left. And Mio notes in the answer above it that that will also be when the adaptive armor comes out, so that patch after the next one is going to be quite interesting. They're also planning on buffing the ammo bag to give you possibly greater armor penetration when you use it, so it's better against heavy SWAT. The R900 sniper is going to get some buffs and skill synergies again in the patch after the next one. That patch is really looking quite big the more they say about it, and also improving the readability of the skills menu as part of their UI improvements for this year. One that people will be very happy about is that Mio acknowledged that heisters don't talk enough in-game and they are going to address it going forward, but more surprisingly, Crime Spree is very high on our list of additions to the game, but they decided to reprioritize it and focus on Operation Medic Bag. So that suggests that maybe within the next 6 months we would have got Crime Spree if not for Operation Medic Bag, which... Anyone else really surprised by that? Crime Spree was an interesting concept, but I feel like most people didn't care for it apart from the way that it could exploit your levels before they patched that out in Payday 2. So, intriguing. I would not be against it. It was an interesting feature, but I wonder if they're going to bring that maybe in the latter part of 2024 then. Who knows? Also, if people wondering about weapon leveling, they're going to be adding a weapon prestige system that will give both cosmetics and a permanent EXP boost every time you prestige the weapon, so you'll be able to level up weapons faster the more times you prestige them. Intriguing, okay, I'll be intrigued to see what the cosmetics are because they'll have to make it worthwhile, otherwise what would be the point, but no mention as to when that's happening, so we'll see what happens there. And in terms of more general skill reworks, they plan to add new skill lines this year, also increase the max number of skill points to 28, that's a big up from 21, but considering the trees they've been adding, I think that's necessary. And they're also exploring a new auxiliary game system that should help a bit more with build variety. Intriguing. So that's everything interesting, or notable I should say, that Mio had to say in the AMA. So that's the end of his section. Let's have a little look through Almir's now and see if he's had anything to say that we haven't already covered so far. There's a very general vibe to a lot of these messages that I just want to touch on that pop up a lot in here, and one of them is, first off, making sure that they lead by proof. So Almir is very much focused on making sure that they regain players' trust. It's unfortunate that it isn't even close to the first time he's had to say that, but it still is nice for him to say it regardless. But they want to make sure that Operation Medic Bag in its execution proves that they want to make Payday 3 better. They also have noticed they have a lot of faith in Payday 3, and that's why they're committed to Operation Medic Bag to make the game better, and they're hoping those actions will speak for themselves as to their commitment to the longevity of the game. And on top of that, anyone who asked about the publishers, he was saying, you know, they've been very helpful, there's not really any problems there. I know some people in the background have been saying, oh, Deep Silver caused problems. I personally have been very suspicious of some of the things Deep Silver may or may not have done. For example, forcing microtransactions in a game that really shouldn't have them, especially considering the Payday 2's history with them. Sorry, I'm going to keep saying it, you can't stop me, but I hope that they have at least been as helpful as he's making them out to be, even if they have caused them the odd problem, because whenever you've got an external publisher, there's always going to be a back and forth. You're never going to agree on everything. That's very, very easy and fair to say. But they're just the general vibes from his messages, so let's see if we can pick out anything unique that we want to read through specific to Almir's replies. He notes that there won't be a specific cadence for a lot of features, because even though some things may seem simple, it's very much a case of you fix one thing, you break 3 others, so they've got to try and make sure everything works in coherence with everything else in the game. So they're trying to be very general so they don't break promises to when things will come. Fair enough. They do intend to spread free content throughout the year, and the DLCs will still come out before year's end, seeing as they made the silver and gold editions. As part of the Operation Medic Bag initiatives, they'll simply be adding more content than originally planned for. Now, the interesting thing here is the DLCs will still need to come out before year's end. Does he mean year 1's end or 2024's end? Because technically it should be year 1 end of Payday 3. It should be by the end of August or mid-September, realistically. I honestly do think it seems more likely they're going to spread it out across 2024. I think with the amount of focus they're putting into Operation Medic Bag, those extra 3 or 4 months may well be needed to put into the DLC because they'll spend so much time fixing other things. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if some of it's a couple of months later than you may have expected. So I think it's worth keeping that in mind because that may well be impacting when DLC releases. They also have confirmed they haven't got any plans on holiday heists or any kind of special themed events for times of the year, because it depends on how much resources they have in the development team. Making past events they've done takes a lot of time and resources, but knowing they're appreciated by the community is a great indicator of what they should do going forward. I would like to see some thematic events, but again, much like previous things I've said, I don't think that generally it's necessary. I don't think that they need to be focusing on that just yet. Here's a general response from Almir that I think is important to read out because it sums up a lot of what I've said about his responses and gives you an idea of what he's trying to say across a lot of his AMA answers. Operation Medic Bag just launched and they're looking to address many different aspects of the game, but right now the focus is to deliver on the improvements they've laid out in the operation and over time do in-game updates more frequently. A good cadence they're trying to aim for is 4 to 6 weeks between updates, but when it comes to communication, this week they are starting doing, again, weekly blog posts they mentioned. This is what he said in the AMA, and they didn't say weekly in any of the actual Payday 3 posts, so this could be a slip of the tongue, it could be a general aim. I mean, he did say they're aiming for 4 to 6 weeks between updates, not it will be 4 to 6 weeks, so this could also be a bit of an exaggeration. So, again, let's wait and see what happens there, but they will inform us on different aspects of the game that they're working on. Some weeks they'll have more to say, and others less, but overall the goal is to never again be in a situation where they go radio silent for so long. I think the weekly blog posts, the streams, and the upcoming improvements being added will keep the community in the loop and make it feel like we're making progress. Feedback along the way from the community is an integral part of it, so we will see what you think as we move ahead with the strategy. All sounds good in theory. Let's see where it goes in execution. I also think his answer regarding developing heists is important to go over. With Operation Medic Bag, they shifted their focus and remade their plans for the year to make sure they address the most urgent feedback from the community, but making legacy heists for Payday 3 is not just about porting them, and this is a mistake that some people still seem to be making. They have to reimagine them and literally rebuild them for Payday 3, not just rebuild them to be the same as they were in Payday 2, so you have that map again in the new engine, but also it's got to flow with Payday 3 systems like Cook-Off, changing the layout of the map to better flow with Payday 3's content. It's not a simple case of just taking the assets and porting them over. As we've said a million times on this channel in specific, Diesel engine was a piece of garbage, and even porting things on the same engine from PC to console was now impossible. Nearly everything had to be redone, and that's why console fell so far behind with the team that they had. Well, one of many reasons. So on Unreal, while it's better to port between platforms on Unreal, without a doubt, it's not easy to port from Diesel to Unreal. They have to rebuild it in Unreal Engine 4. So imagining, oh, they just have to port it over and tweak a few things, it really ain't that simple. It's important to mention that because I think some people still miss that. They do want to make as many legacy heists as they can, but it's all a give and take depending on what they're focusing their time and energy on. But if anyone's worried about whether all free heists coming up will be legacy ones, he says that they want to do free heists as well as legacy ones. So unique free heists should be on the cards at some point. I mean, if the free heist they're planning this year is a legacy heist, that means there won't be an original free heist in Payday 3 in its first year, roughly, from some of what they're saying, if it all works out the way they're promising based on minimums. So I hope that the one free heist they're planning is a unique one. As much as I want legacy heists, we need free, unique, new heists for Payday 3. So that will be sorely lacking if that's not addressed. In case you're under any doubt, more heists are also coming. Regarding microtransactions, Almir says, I remember all too well how the microtransaction scandal in Payday 2 went and what consequences it had for us. And if I can jump in here, this is me reinforcing my point again. Because of that, I still firmly believe this wasn't their decision for the microtransaction store. Starbreeze are not a faultless company. We all know this by now, but I really don't think Starbreeze was stupid enough to go for this decision without even the slightest of nudges from Deep Silver. I think the publishers really nudged in here. If I'm wrong, fair enough, I hold my hands up, but I really don't see them being stupid enough to go, let's put microtransactions in again after it all went wrong in Payday 2. Either way, for Payday 3, with us refocusing the roadmap for the year, the natural thing to do for us was to move the store to 2025, since it doesn't make sense to add it now. I can tell you the addition to the store does not affect other content. That would be a lose-lose situation, so you won't lose out on DLC tailor packs as a result of microtransaction stores happening, is what he's trying to say. We want you to feel that what you buy makes sense and feels good, whether it's from a store or tied to a DLC, so your feedback is super important to us in that regard. If that's the case, here's the feedback. Don't do it. Moving on. So, the next answer from Almir. I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep saying it and you can't stop me. I think they're well aware of it by this point. And not to mention, someone actually said, do you guys really want to add the microtransactions? And he said, we want to give you options to grab new content that is a good deal that makes you happy and improves the experience. If anyone in the audience thinks that microtransactions will improve the experience in a game that already has DLC that's currently massively overpriced, please raise your hands. Just looking in the hallway of my viewers right now, I don't see a single hand. Oh, okay, fair enough. Worth keeping in mind. Sorry, I'm being really sarcastic, but I think you have to allow me this because this is the thing I'm most passionate about, so it's important that I do give it a little bit of extra oomph there because it needs to not be there. Just doesn't need to be there. Also, regarding collaborations, we got the standard answer about there being 30 different ones for Payday 2 and that people like Jacket and want him back, but they're not going to be focusing on collaborations right now. They'll come later down the line, which makes sense. Once the game's in a better state, add cool things in. Makes sense. No confirmation as to if you need PlayStation Plus or by connection, Xbox Gold or Game Pass Ultimate as it's called now to play the offline mode. If I had to take a guess, I'd expect that you still would, but we'll see. You know, prepare for the worst, hope for the best kind of attitude there. Regarding getting the Payday 3 soundtrack on Spotify, now Gustavo did say when I interviewed him that this was going to happen down the line, but Almir says he doesn't have a date or time now for when we're going to add music from Payday 3 onto Spotify or anything else beyond that, but no, they're aware of the music fandom and want the people to be able to listen to the music outside of the game, so I think that's going to be very low priority in my opinion. Also, there'll be free and paid characters added to the game, so it's worth keeping in mind that whenever heists get added, they could be free, they could be paid. I do appreciate him noting that the project failed to hit expectations and not any one singular entity. So that's very, very intriguing to say. So making it very clear the project did not meet their internal expectations, which is interesting because I think they did say that once Payday 3 had come out, they had made back all their money off the sales of the game. Obviously, refunds come into play, but intriguing to note that it officially did not meet their expectations. I think it's important to note that he has acknowledged that. With regards to changing the price of DLCs, though, how will it affect people who pre-ordered an edition of the game which includes DLCs bundled at an original price? And he said that's something they'll have to keep in mind. So when they adjust prices, they don't want to then shaft people who spent less to get the silver and gold to avoid paying more when each DLC came out. Intriguing based on what I said earlier, but they want to have a more grounded and serious fantasy theme still for Payday 3, because he thinks sometimes Payday 2 overdid the kind of fantasy, jokey elements of it, and he remembers complaints from the community at various points. I'm surprised. Didn't think many people complained. I mean, everyone seemed very happy when a giant spoon got added. Again, I thought it was quite funny. I really like Russian Badger's content, but I think that was a very good summation of how goofy Payday 2 had got, and I thought everyone loved that. So, intriguing. I wonder what criticism he's talking about. I think that pretty much sums up everything he said. I think from here on out, there's some very vague answers. And by the way, I will link these reply threads in the description so you can look through anything extra if you want to read it. But I think this actually covers everything that he said. Yeah, things that either have already been said or that I've already read through. So that will cover everything that has been said in the AMA, at least the most important parts from Almir and from me. Like I said, I will link all three of these tabs in the description of the video. I've been recording for 40 minutes and I said it wasn't going to be 40 minutes long, so hopefully I shaved this thing down. But either way, thank you all for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it. If the new update does drop next week, I'll make a video when it comes out. If it's the week after, same thing applies. But thank you all for hanging out. Greatly appreciate it. I will see you all very soon with a brand new video. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all in the next one.